I am so excited for this spa day. Candles lit, music on, hot tub warm and ready. And then my chronic hives come back. Again, in the middle of my spa day. What a wet blanket. Looks like another spell of itchy red skin. If you have chronic spontaneous urticaria or CSU, there is a different treatment option. Hives during my next spa day? Not if I can help it. Learn more at treatmyhives.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
Welcome to the You Should Know podcast. Today we have Jonathan on. We're going to be talking about the 2024 Leadership Trends Report that they put out. And we're going to have a lot of fun. So let's just get right into it. Jonathan, would you do us a favor and introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks.
First of all, William and Ryan, thank you so much for having me on the show. And it's a real pleasure to be here. So Jonathan Kirschner, I'm the founder and CEO of AIIR Consulting. Also just started a new company called AIIR Analytics, which is our sister company. And the common denominator between those two things and my greatest passion, like literally what gets me excited to come to work, even when it's a bad day, is leadership. So I really get a ton of energy working with leaders, supporting leaders, helping organizations identify their leadership strategy and who the best leaders are to make it happen. And the reason is because leaders have a disproportionate level of influence within the system. And if we can help a leader be more effective, that has such a huge impact on so many other people. And so I get a lot of meaning from that. And a little bit about me, I'm a psychologist by training. So I will be analyzing both of you in the background of my mind.
No judgment.
So clinical psychologist by training. Actually, it was midway through my graduate program that I took a class in executive coaching and then added the industrial organizational piece. So I have both this clinical psych and the industrial organizational psych. I love when I'm not working, which is very seldom, but when I'm not working, barbecue, ice hockey, gardening in the spring and the summer, and then I've got 4 kids that I love and play with. So
That's a full
feel
boat
very
right
blessed.
there.
What's that?
I said that's a full boat. That's that's a lot. I like that you got the gardening though. That was nice.
That
I got the
what?
ice hockey. That you got to gardening.
Oh,
You know, like I like that a lot because it
something's
seems
got to
like
chill me out.
That's your mellow time.
ice hockey sounds like okay. That's something you're doing with your kids. You're taking kids to ice hockey, or maybe you got a team that you're following.
Both.
Okay, all right. Who do you follow?
I'm the captain of Team Air Force. Which is
Tell
a
us
team
more.
I've assembled for a 2-day charity tournament that takes place this April 7th and 8th. And it's supporting a really, really amazing organization called RCCS, which helps families and cancer patients and their families, essentially. So it's an incredible cause, and we have a lot of fun. And it's selfishly like the only way I could get myself to work out because I hate working out.
Right.
So,
You got to be fit. People don't
you got
understand
to be fit. It's 5 games in 2 days. So for someone my age, you need to.
I wasn't going to say that about your age part, but just 5 games. 5 games.
It's intense. It's super intense.
It's intense. Yeah. What do you play? What's your position?
So I'm a left winger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm down in the South. Well, Texas is really technically the West, but so we didn't grow up with hockey. We grew up with soccer.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, and football and things like that. So, but I love watching hockey on TV, and I've been to a bunch of Stars games. My favorite Stars moment was the season that they won the Stanley Cup, which was 100 years ago. But somebody got me tickets down on the glass. It was a client, actually.
Yeah.
And they couldn't go. And they're like, hey, last minute thing tonight. Do you want to go see the Stars? I'm like, yeah, but we only have 2 tickets. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And so when I get there, I'm of course clueless about it. So they're like, okay, yeah, you got to go down that section. And I keep going down. I keep going down. I'm like, we're just going to be really, really close to the glass. Oh my goodness, we're going to be really on the glass, like literally, like putting my palm prints all over the glass. I'm like, oh, this is insane. And
it's the coolest thing. There. I did that myself.
Oh my God.
By the way, there's a double-edged sword, and it's relevant to our topic of leadership because when you're at the glass, it's like a different game. Literally, you see the sweat beating off of people. You experience, like the vibration of the boards when somebody hits it. So it's almost a different game when you're there. And yet, so here's the other edge of the sword. Very hard to see all the way to the other side.
It's a trees in the forest analogy,
Sometimes there's, some marks on the glass. It's smudged up, right? Yep. And so to me, that's like, sometimes I'm like, you want to know what leadership is like, or bad leadership, or ineffective leadership, I should say. It's like, moving 120 miles an hour with your hand like this, right? You get so close to it that you lose
all
the
perception.
Big picture.
Yeah.
And that is, I actually think that's one of the greatest competencies of a leader is the ability to sort of know what's going on and be plugged in, but also not get stuck in the weeds and the details and be able to see the big picture. And that's it. So to really put a bow on this, what did Wayne Gretzky say? Wayne Gretzky said, skate to where the puck is going to be.
That's right.
Right. You can't possibly do that if you don't have a vista view of the system.
Well, y'all would know it from a hockey perspective, from soccer. You've got, and basketball is the same way. You have to have your eyes up. Like my 14-year-old plays AAU basketball, but I played what we call club or select soccer back then. You couldn't look down at your feet when you dribbled.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like you had to look up. You had to know where the ball was on your feet, but you had to be scanning the field. So if somebody's coming at you or 2 guys are coming at you, you have to know to pass or dump off, or if somebody's breaking, you got to know what to do with it. So that's actually a really, really great analogy. Let's start with, so because you mentioned it just barely, the analytics part, the consulting firm, I think Ryan and I both kind of get a feel for what you do there, but I want you to tell us a little bit more like the services array. The analytics piece, that's really fascinating. So is it a product? Or is
it's more of so AIIR Consulting is sort of like 80% services, 20% product. Right. AIIR Analytics is the flip. It's like 80-20 product to services. So AIIR Consulting is all about, and that's the sort of the legacy organization that I started 14 years ago. Right. And it's all about optimization of a leader. So I'm a leader. I want to go from point A or where I am right now to point B. We do that in a couple of ways. One, through executive coaching, which is our bread and butter service. So that's the one-to-one development of an organizational leader. We work with teams, intact teams, or matrix teams to optimize leadership from that angle. And
so you, in the context of this team, how do you get better? There's also
how do you, as team leader, elevate the team, but also not just the team leader, how do team members create a shared purpose, aligned to certain behavioral norms, and become, intentional about how we operate together, both from a team culture standpoint. So like, how do we interact with each other?
Do you use assessments in that process, like the Berkman
so you got to use
Hogan or any of that stuff?
So AIIR, our name of both organizations, stands for Assessment, Insight, Implementation, Reinforcement. So It's a 4-stage
Oh.
process for
Yep.
creating sustained behavioral change. But that first step is assessment. And, it's logical, right? If we want to change something,
Kind of a baseline.
you could actually dive right in, but a wise one might say, let's take a hot minute to figure out what we want to change by doing a valid assessment.
So why don't we start with the trends report and then get into a little bit of the findings?
Cool. Sounds good.
Right.
So we are on our 7th year of doing our leadership trends report, and we do it a little differently each year. And this past year, we surveyed both our coaches. We have a 200 plus bench of leadership experts and actual organizational leaders. And we asked them one question that elicits a ton of qualitative data, which is essentially like, what will leaders be grappling with in the year ahead? And then the other question gets at, so what? So then what do they need to be doing? This year on that so what question, we deployed one of our products from AIIR Analytics called the Leadership Genome, which is, it takes our leadership model, which is 3 broad domains of leadership: leading self, leading others, leading the organization, 12 dimensions that tuck under those 3 domains, and then 45 skills. So if I gave you these 45 skills, think of them as like ingredients for leadership, and said, all right, I need to know which 5 ingredients are going to make the most optimal cookie for operating in 2024. That's what the Leadership Genome survey does. And you give it to subject matter experts, or in this case, the respondents to our trends survey. And then on the back end, we do the calculations and arrive at, in a very sort of robust, data-driven way, the critical skills from those 45 that are going to like have a sort of disproportionate level of impact or influence on success. So that's the methodology. And I'll share at a high level what we found. So as far as challenges for 2024, and none of this should surprise you guys, like AI came up as the number one, right? So AI. And it's like it's really hard to keep pace, 1, and 2, there's just a tremendous amount of uncertainty that AI and the rapid pace of technological innovation introduces into the system. We saw that in 23. It's only going to accelerate in 24. Hybrid and workforce dynamics, leaders have not nailed that down yet. So there's still more work to be done there. Navigating the macro, so both like the economy, which continues to show a lot of mixed signals, and also just the geopolitics, and like there's at least 2, if not 3 wars going on right now. And that has created some fragility all around. So navigating the macro, leading through change, just like tons and tons of change. And then addressing employee well-being and mental health, which is very related, by the way, to change. The brain, like we're wired to do a change and then like calibrate and then figure out how to like then do those new behaviors. We're not necessarily wired for constant change. That creates a lot of churn and burden on the brain. And so I think part of the reason why it's, I think it's a multi-headed beast, but part of the reason why there's so much challenge in the domain of mental health and well-being has to do with this rapid pace of change that is constant at this point. So those are the challenges. As far as like, all right, what do we need to do? Here's the 7 skills that came out, and would love to get a sense from both of you, your reaction and what resonates. So first and foremost, resilience. That's like the number one. Resilience, the ability to bounce back, be strong, not just on good days. Resilience is number one of all the 7. Navigating change is a leadership skill that's going to be essential. Self-awareness, our ability to know, when we're being amygdala hijacked, when our weaknesses are coming out versus just pressing forward. It's going to be really important because there's a lot of stress and pressure and uncertainty this year. There always is, right? It's table stakes, but we think it's going to be amplified this year. Self-care, right? Investing in yourself, taking that time, that time out to do your gardening, not just a hobby. It's essential that we find ways to nourish and replenish ourselves as leaders. Prioritization, there's going to be just like there's been just an influx of information, and that's nothing new. It just continues to accelerate. So we need to be able to prioritize constantly, be able to say no to things. Communication, table stakes for any leader, any year that's going to come up. And trust, really, really important, that we're able to establish that core feature among our people and our teams. Without trust, most of this won't work, right? Yeah. So those are the 7 skills that we identified out of the 45 that are going to be most important in our view for this year.
Let's look at change. So I think trust. I think trust is a big one, and one that in all the conversations we have constantly comes up. Trust within the ranks of the employees. What are you finding through either your conversations or in this report? How can leaders navigate that change?
Yeah, I think trust is interesting. I mean, it's so evergreen and timeless, right? Mm-hmm. But one of the challenges with trust is like hybrid.
Yep.
And working hybrid.
Yeah. I was in a situation just recently. We had a guest. We were going to go out to dinner, and I have an employee who comes in twice a week, and probably should have been invited to this dinner, and we completely missed. It was brought to my attention, and how do you repair? And in her mind, it's like, wow, do they not? Maybe they don't.
Why
think
am I here?
What? A lot of questions arise. So trust starts to get degraded, and so as a leader, once this was brought to my attention, immediately I had to go and say, hey, I'm really sorry. This is a huge miss. But we're fine and trust is restored. But that's happening in so many different ways, oftentimes much more subtle than what I just shared. And
I was about to say,
we don't even realize it because we don't see half of our people.
Yeah. And then it becomes non-repairable at some point on the employee side.
As the trust debt or mistrust debt builds,
at one point
becomes So I think that there's a dimension of like our ways of working that is still being in flux, and us not having fully adjusted to hybrid and set the right norms that we're more vulnerable to sort of discrepancies in perception that can quickly become issues of trust. So I mean, that's happening. And then obviously, with every organization, many organizations, doing pretty sizable layoffs, that's created an environment of like, can I really trust this organization right now? And so we're seeing that within organizations. And then you have at a more macro level, like when you open up a Twitter feed or X feed, or you watch the news, it's like, they're saying that, which one's right? So what is true and what is not true is increasingly harder to decipher And then if you want to really add another layer on with AI and, deep fake stuff and all that, it's, I don't see the issue necessarily getting easier.
What's the secret sauce here to build that connection? How does a leader effectively build that connection in a hybrid environment? And we're a couple years into this, and it blows my mind that we're still having this conversation, but we are.
Yeah, I think that it's sometimes the best thing you can do is to say, I don't know. Or, and to acknowledge that we're figuring this out and we're going to figure this out together. Rather than saying, get your ass back into work.
Right.
Right.
And if you
which is just a reaction. That's kind of
it's taking a hardline stance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can appreciate the context for why some organizations are taking that stance.
Right.
But, and that may be the right approach for some organizations based on that context. But if you think for a moment that that's not going to have repercussions to your culture,
100%.
Both known and unknown, then you're making a huge mistake, and you should.
All actions have some type of consequences, and I love that you did the own or unknown Don Rumsfeld bit, where it's the unknown unknowns, which is my favorite. Yes, it's my favorite bit. Like I don't think the press room knew that he was doing a Marx Brothers bit, but it was so great because he was deadpan through the whole thing. So great. It's like 9 minutes long. It's sheer comedy. I don't think he knew maybe that he was doing it, or maybe they didn't know, but I love it. This is my favorite thing. I want to get back to, or I would love to get your advice on resilience, because I don't think it's just a now thing. I think this has obviously been going on for quite a while, but how do you know if you're being self-aware, how do you know if you have resilience? And or how do you build resilience in yourself and those around you?
Optimism isn't sunshine and rainbows. It's fixing things, changing the way we fix things. It's running the world on smarter energy. Because if optimism never stops, then change can't either. GE Vernova, the energy of change.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. When you visit the doctor, you probably hand over your insurance, your ID, and contact details. It's just one of the many places that has your personal info. And if any of them accidentally expose it, you could be at risk for identity theft. LifeLock monitors millions of data points a second. If you become a victim, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year at lifelock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's how do you do it in general, and then there's like how do you, as a leader,
right,
foster resilience within the organization. And on that last piece, the modeling is really, really important, right? So if my leader just pushes through and is always pretending like they're strong and everything's fine, but then having these like sort of weird moments where everybody's looking at them and like, is she okay? Is she really okay? Yeah. That's not.
It almost becomes weird that they're not freaked out.
Right. Well, but then but the message that's being sent to the organization is you need to, whether you're strong or not, you need to pretend like you're strong.
Yeah.
Right.
And then that really, essentially,
it seems very male to me. If I'm being honest, that seems very kind of World War II.
Stereotypically male for sure. Yeah.
Posture,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just it seems like that would be something that came out of World War II.
Suck it up.
Right.
Suck it up.
Rub some butter on it. Go ahead. Run around the track a couple times. You'll be fine. It's a concussion.
And I would say like a leader being able to say, look, this was a rough quarter.
Right.
This was rough on me, and it had to have been rough on all of you. We need to take some time to appreciate that. We need to lick our wounds, and we're going to get up, and we're going to come out of the gate strong. But we need to not just pretend like that didn't happen, right? So allowing ourselves to experience our vulnerability is important. Not get stuck in it, because then that's not constructive at all, right?
That helps no one.
But we need to know that we're human, and just like there's stages of grief, there's stages of recovery.
Why do you think leaders, not all leaders, just do this? Why do they take a backseat to being vulnerable and sharing that with their employees?
It's a great question.
I think we're used to seeing, to William's point about, kind of like the great male leader who is perfect and strong and charismatic and authoritative and has everything figured out.
Yeah.
That's our image of what a leader is.
That's very true. Yeah. Which was probably never true. You know what I'm saying? Like, which is really interesting. If we were to look at that and get into their lives, we'd probably find out they're raging alcoholic, whatever.
Addicts,
like there was never. That's just an idealized myth or a stereotype. I think is the way you phrased it. It's just a stereotype of what a perfect leader is. But there was never a perfect leader. Like, none of the Romans were perfect. None of the Greek leaders were perfect. None of our presidents have been perfect. Like, no one's perfect.
Definitely not the presidents.
Definitely not. That was easy. That was easy.
It's interesting. It was. But as you're saying this, it's interesting because I can remember pre-kids, I always in my mind thought you're going to be the invincible father. Right? You're going to be the role model that could do no wrong.
Oh, you set yourself up.
Oh, I did because they let me know every day how great I am. Not, like they're very good at that.
I set the expectations extremely low. So like my wife read every book in Babies R Us, and she asked me, she goes, "Are you going to read?" I'm like, they were having babies in the Nile 5,000 years ago.
They did.
I don't need to read a book. I'll just kind of figure it out as I go. And she's just like,
under promise, over deliver.
100%. I'm like, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
No, but you set yourself up for failure right from the jump there.
I did. But what I've learned is and I know that I tie this back into the leadership conversation because it's the amount of people that say you can't be your kid's best friend. I get it. Can't be their best friend. But you don't have to be the hard ass all the time either. You can listen and you can let them make decisions and you can let them live a life without them living your life. Right. And I think it took not a lot of time. I mean, I learned it pretty quickly. Like as soon as they could talk, I learned it's okay for them to have a voice. And I think that's the same as with employees. When I started, I would never even think about. Actually, there was a time I walked in where I told one of my girls this a couple weeks back. I was late. I was late for work. It was, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes late. I'm not lying. Like, I literally had to iron my shirt. That's why I was late. But he asked me, where were you? Why were you late? I had to iron my shirt. And he didn't take that as a joke. And I wasn't joking. That's really why I was late. But at that moment, I realized I can't talk to my boss this way. And I was fresh out of school. And it wasn't until a couple of roles later where I was invited in to talk to leadership and actually have that conversation. And it was very different. And I think that's a key to strong leaders.
Yeah, creating some safe space for them. I think that's but also the vulnerability. I mean, some of this is tracking back to your own vulnerability as a leader and allowing others to be vulnerable. So first of all, you've got to emulate that behavior that you want to see in other people. And then you've got to allow them when that happens and they break down on a call or they, have a mishap in their life and they're just off. You've got to be able to not freak out, which is a normal, I think for all of us. You've got to be able to give them space, say, you know what, you're going through a tough time. We're compadres. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Don't worry, I got you.
It's not an easy balance to strike. I mean, on some level, they're contradictory, right? Like, by allowing myself to be vulnerable, I'm fundamentally showing my weakness and
Right.
And my imperfections.
Right.
And by, being super high performing and really like conscientious about my executive presence, I'm kind of, my intent is to drive credibility and influence, but it's pushing in the other direction. Right.
Right.
So balancing those two things, it is an art to strike.
And every team, every leader, every company culture, it's again, like you use the ingredients analogy. I can see people struggling with that, or kind of it changes. So your team changes, that dynamic in your team changes. Maybe you have a new team, etc. Well, now you've got some new ingredients. You have to now work through.
Mm-hmm.
You were very strong in certain areas before. Now you're not as strong there. Okay, how do you build that back up? I can see that. And, as we talked about, no leader is perfect. No employee is perfect either. And so, again, that space for people to fail, I think is super important. So that to not beat them over the head when they fail. When they make a mistake, or we make a mistake.
Yeah.
Not beat ourselves over the head when we make a mistake.
Yeah, I think the sometimes the simplest things are the things we learn in are supposed to learn in kindergarten, right? Like raise your hand, share,
play nice in the sandbox.
Play nice in the so saying I'm sorry, like acknowledging, that was a miss, and I apologize. That is, if I think about leaders in my life, those are some of the most crucial moments. And again, if the person's saying sorry every day, then it's like, wait a minute,
different.
Not the same.
Like,
but see, I know because you're analyzing me, I'll try to phrase this correctly. Just kidding. I don't trust men that can't say that's a good idea, or you're right, or I'm sorry, or I apologize. Like, they can't be vulnerable for whatever reason.
mm-hmm.
They can't be vulnerable. If they can't be vulnerable, I don't want them in my life.
Yeah.
And I jettisoned them because I'm like, you know what? If you're not to that place, I can't spend time around you because you'll drag me down.
Yeah. Well, in that situation, they haven't truly connected with you,
right,
as an individual who can co-create and grow together.
That's right.
They're essentially interacting with you as an object.
Yeah.
All that matters really is them, right?
And some of that could be linked to self-awareness as well.
Indeed.
So the interconnectivity, like Ryan brought up trust. I mean, we went to, hybrid or work from home, etc. You've probably got all kinds of interaction between these things, between the skills that people are going to need and the trends that you see, etc. So AI, you led with AI. Where does it touch for you some of the skills that leaders need?
Where does, I'm sorry, the question was
AI?
Where does AI touch some of the skills leaders?
Does it touch
I mean,
all
I think
seven?
that's the question we're all scratching. I mean, of course, there's some like technical skills like prompt engineering and like knowing the various contexts to use AI and how to use AI ethically. There's a whole set of technical knowledge around that. As far as how to use AI as a tool, as a potential tool for organizational effectiveness, for culture, I think that's that's an unknown. Frankly, it's an unknown. I will say, like, if somebody says, I can write up the HR briefing, I got it, and they send something, and it's just like perfect. I'm like, no, you didn't write that, and everybody else knows you didn't write that, and that's going back to the kitchen. Why? Because it was perfect.
Yeah,
Why am I sending it back to the kitchen? Because it's not real.
That's right.
Right.
So that's going to be a challenge, right? when the CEO is writing a heartfelt message but not writing it, and it's coming from ChatGPT, like that's I don't know what to. I mean, this brings us into uncharted territory.
100%.
And I think we just need to be really thoughtful and also cognizant of the fact that our people can smell bullshit from very far away.
That's right.
Even if it looks great.
Getting further away, further and further away that they can smell it.
Yeah.
Back, so as you brought in, as you were talking about some of the findings, you mentioned, I think you called it navigating innovation or innovation, something around there. Curious to get your thoughts on this. I feel like there's a big disconnect between the company, the organization, the leadership, and then the employee population of the leadership in understanding the entire landscape of work as it is today. How does a company navigate that? How does a leader navigate that? What are you finding there?
I think it starts with and the most important thing a leader can do right now is continuously remind their people the why. This is like invoking Simon Sinek,
right?
The why, the purpose of why we are working together. And again, that's timeless advice. Every leader needs to do that. They've always needed to do that to be effective. But as a function of the amount of noise, innovation and change, and the fact that we don't see each other physically in many instances now, because of hybrid or virtual first working, leaders need to really underscore and like continuously reinforce and repeat, our why. And if you're not the CEO and you're the head of a product team, then it's the why for that team. So that I feel like if a leader's successful at that, you've like kind of covered 50% of it, because in the end of the day, people are thinking beings and they're able to kind of put together the other pieces as long as the major piece is there, right? But beyond that, I would say that we need to be intentional, always, but even more so given the accelerated pace of change, to sort of the principles of change management, right? Which is communicate, share the why,
communicate,
talk about, anticipate and know that there will be resistance. Like bake that 100%. Into your assumptions. Don't be surprised when there's resistance, because
no one loves change.
There's going to be resistance. Address and then move forward, right?
So two-pronged question, but they're different. One of them is, should a leader assess their talent for what they want in their leader? Meaning, should a leader ask their employees, what do you want to see in a leader? Which begs the question, are leaders, because we like sports, all of us like sports. In sports, sometimes what you see is a coach that's a system. They have a system, and then they put talent into that system, and then you see a coach. Are you referring
to the Eagles again?
No. Definitely the Cowboys. Or you see coaches that are based on the talent. What do I got? What do I got here? Okay, now I'll build a system around the talent that I have. Not that one's better than the other. I'm not advocating for that. But I've seen it just on the pitch. I've seen that on the field, that I could see two coaches both being successful, one being system, one being based on the talent, etc. So the first question was, should a leader just find out, okay, what do you want to see in a leader? Or is it should they just be themselves and just hope that covers people's expectations and needs and desires and all that stuff? And the other one was the system versus talent question.
Yeah, I mean, so it's a great question. This sort of activates my AIIR analytics brain, because AIIR analytics is all about understanding leaders. AIIR consulting is all about developing and optimizing leaders.
Oh, cool.
And with AIIR Analytics, we have a talent assessment practice and our own assessment tool called the LD12. So we're huge fans of using assessment, not just for like a leader to gain self-awareness for themselves, but also for an organization to understand the landscape of their talent. And that same process, that leadership genome process that I shared that we did for the trends report, we do that within organizations to understand, all right, what are the 5 to 7 critical leadership skills that you need that, this other organization, they would have different skills.
Right.
Because they're in a different industry, they're different size, different level of maturity, but you specifically, based on the specific ecological factors of your environment, what are the 5 to 7 skills out of those 45 that your leaders will need to possess in order to be successful based on, where we're going in the future. So we do that. And then you can assess, you can take all that assessment data and look at it against that genome to see, all right, these are the people that can really operate optimally in our future environment based on the criteria that we all agreed upon. It doesn't mean if you don't have those skills, you're not going to be successful in the environment. But if I have to choose, right, who my successor is, or come up with a talent pool like for high potential leaders, I'm probably going to want to choose people that are most congruent with that with that profile. But it's an awesome point you made about sports teams, and I mean, obviously the Eagles is it's a complete case study in like disaster. I don't even know if we understand.
I'm sorry, I think you're frozen. We can't hear you.
He's so great.
I mean, it's a disaster. But you see teams of all-star players that completely get decimated, and you see teams with like varied talent that go on to win, and it's just right. So I think it's both, right? You got to have a good system, and you have to have good talent, and then there's a third element, which is like the orchestrator, right? Who knows how to create the conditions of psychological safety.
Yeah. Not Nick Sirianni. Just going to put it out there. He did not do that this year.
So great. I'm so happy that we got to this place. Ryan, do you have a last question that you want to ask before we exit?
No, go for it, man. I'll let you wrap it up.
Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on the show. We could talk for hours, and we need to schedule another call because I have a bunch of questions around experiential learning that I'd love to get your take on. So we'll schedule another time to do that bit. But thank you
I'm all in.
so much.
I would love it. Thank you so much. This was a great conversation.